we are harvesting our potatoes today. Now, we got these in early March. A few things to share before we dig into them and see what we come up with is we know they're going to be small potatoes, but they're not going to be huge because it's early. They're just flowering. But the reality is we view our garden like real estate in that we want it to always be planted with something. We want it to have as much biodiversity as possible. So where it would be, you could argue that we should have just planted radishes and lettuce all over the place so we could successional plant other things faster. The reality is we want to have as many different crops as possible, both to relieve pest pressure, but also to nourish our family. So before we even consider taking things to farmers market and sharing it at our little booth there, is we want to have as many types of foods that we can grow as possible for our family's dinner plate. So we know that these are going to be small potatoes because they haven't been in the ground that long, but we need the space. We need to get eggplants and peppers in the spaces that specifically have potatoes in them right now. So regardless of how big they are, it's their time to move and we will make the most of it. We're excited to see how many baby potatoes we get. My dad loves them so much, he literally eats them raw with a little bit of salt, sea salt on them. So he'll definitely be getting some of what we harvest, whatever it is. But we will weigh it up and we will even figure out how much it's worth. So here we go. Well, as you can see, my husband did most of the work harvesting all the baby potatoes that we had. Like my dad says, in my condition. So I'll take all, I really appreciate what he's doing. But so the tally is in, or the count is in, and we have just under 9 pounds of baby potatoes. So obviously they're pretty small, but they've only been growing, it's May 19th right now. They're planted early March, really 2.5 months. It hasn't been long. It would be ideal if we just had one more month to get a really full harvest, but the reality is we don't have that time because we need to get other stuff in the ground. So please be gracious with us. We're obviously not market growers. We only take extra stuff to farmers market really for fun, but I'm really grateful for this because at 9 pounds, okay, at $3 a pound for baby potatoes, we've got $27, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we did buy seed potatoes, so we spent about $10 to $12 there. But you can put any sprouted potatoes, especially organic ones. We definitely made our investment back. Our soil was covered in those early months, feeding the microbial life and just feeding the soil, and covering it. So that's something that's really important to us too. So between the baby potatoes that give us our money back and the soil being covered and used and just feeding life into it, I do feel that there's enough pros to outweigh the cons of the effort to plant and the time that it took. Obviously, if we were doing really focused on feeding more people in that max time right now, it would have been wiser to plant radishes or, more lettuce and greens and stuff in that area. But we wanted to try something new. So this is gardening. You learn and you grow with it. And we call this our practice farm. As much as we'd love to have a big one someday, it's so great to be able to practice these things and learn from them in small quantities right where we're at. I don't know, 9 pounds for throwing them in there. It didn't take a lot of time. It didn't take a lot of money. And I think my dad's going to be really happy with his birthday supper of having some homegrown baby potatoes right here in Oklahoma. So I hope that you guys are encouraged to throw some spuds in the ground wherever you get them, and just plug them in where you can and see what you get. Even if you have to harvest them early like us to make the most out of it, the reality is it's trying and practicing, and that trial and error is what really makes us more resilient as things change, and we want to keep growing with it. So even though everybody can't do everything, we all can do something, and we hope you give it a go.